Welcome everybody to Monday Morning Call with Paul. We got the soon-to-be FFL legend, Ayaan here with us. Came from the same practice company that I came from, and Zach, Harold, quite a few of us actually. And man, we're so excited to have you here on the team with us, man. So man, appreciate you coming on. If you can, give a little bit everybody a backstory about what got you into insurance in the first place there.
Yes, absolutely. And before we even get started, man, I just want to say that the honor is mine, truly, to be around, some like-minded individuals like yourselves. I also want to say a huge shout out and thank you to everybody who has welcomed us here with open arms and made this a smooth transition for all of us. No, to answer your question, I've only been in the insurance industry for, about a year. I'm very much so a lot left to learn in this industry for myself and for my people as well. But my background is generally just in business, building, scaling, exiting previous businesses beforehand. So taking that kind of knowledge and then bringing it into this industry where it's data has shown this to be like an almost $1 trillion industry with enough leg room for everyone to be able to be taken care of. So essentially, I started at the practice company last July. I actually interviewed with my SGA, and my initial goal at the time, the owner of the agency I was trying to, meet with, I wanted to own an agency. I wanted to my first question to him was essentially in the most humble way possible. I asked him, I said, so, what kind of costs are associated with opening up my own agency and buying into the business? And he was very quick, in the most respectful way possible. And I said it in a different way too. And he told me that essentially the only way for me to do it was just work my way up, right? Which is okay, fine. But it was a humbling experience for sure, because I hadn't really worked in quite some time. I had, by the grace of God, I kind of just built my own thing, and I was sitting idle. So I just wanted to buy and build, right? So yeah, essentially, he told me free leads, all that fun stuff. I shook his hand. I said respectfully, thank you very much. That's not really for me. Called him back 3 months later. I'm like, you know what? Let me put my pride aside. Let me get on the phone. Let's see what happens, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, that worked out. But the problem was, and essentially, I say this to say that in a nutshell, we kind of built our sort of team based off the backs of the mistakes of many people that seem to be made in this industry, like business sort of mistakes, just sort of things that I was able to analyze. So I was in the business for like the first 6 months. I didn't really hire anybody. I wasn't really focused on sort of building the recruit. And I don't like to call it recruiting respectfully. I like to call it hiring because I'm going to get here shortly, but we're looking for quality over quantity, and that's kind of why we made this transition to you guys, is because we share the similar beliefs and standards in that regard. But that's essentially what I did. 6 months, I did like a case study time period. I just played the good dumb guy, and I just came in there like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
About the industry, but I'm surrounded by people my age, and obviously ego gets involved, things like that. Took 6 months just to understand, analyze. And I was like, okay, these are the holes in the game. The biggest thing I came to realize was that it was like a revolving door, right? People always talk about, I say this many times, people always talk about, oh, how much did your team do last month in production? Okay, that's nice to hear, but my biggest thing is that, okay, and I mean, the most humble way possible is like, okay, how many people came into your business and stayed in your business? How many people came into your business and, are happy in your business? And that was kind of what we built our basis around. And then fast forward to, a couple months later, we started building our deal and started building it in December. And from December to now, we've probably hired just about 50 people, and now we're sitting with about 25 now, and like strong minded individuals who are willing to take over the industry. And like I said, I couldn't be able to do this without my leaders and my team. Shout out Ayaan, Elvis Como, Muhammad Razi, like these guys, like we had to literally, it was insane. Like there was nights where we were sitting in the office like 1, 2 in the morning putting these things together, crazy stuff. But that's just a nutshell. I still have a lot to learn, things like that, but yeah, looking to take off very soon with your guys' guidance.
Well, I've had a lot of people come on here now. We're still new, right? We're still pretty new with the Monday Morning Call with Paul, right? But I will say this, man, you are the best dressed guest I've had so far. So let's throw a 2 in the chat if y'all agree. Mike, I don't know, is that Italian? You already made it, bro? Yeah.
Nah, nothing like that, man. I don't even know where this is from. It's from like North America. I had to dress up for you.
Well, hey, I think you said a lot of important things right there. So I think a lot of agencies out there, they're very focused on how many people can I bring in? We used words like give the opportunity to, right? But there's not a lot of people saying, the people that I do bring in, are they making a living that they feel comfortable and financially free? Are they really making it? Or are they just struggling to get by? right? Do they have the support? Do they have the training? I think all those things are key components. So sometimes when people grow too fast, they lose a lot of people and that they wouldn't normally have lost if they grew at, let's say, at a steady pace in which they could, make sure they're helping their people and developing people the right way, right? And not that growing too fast isn't a problem, right? I mean, that's a problem itself, but it's also a good problem. You could still put in things in place, right? But I think what you're talking about and how you're building makes a lot of sense. And I think you're well thought out and going through that process in your head and figuring out, the different, tricks to the trade, so to speak, but also what's a good business model. So let's kind of hop into something else that's important, and that's leads, right? When you and your team came over, what was it like with the leads you had in the previous place, and how has leads here changed for you?
If I'm being honest with you, this kind of goes back to what you're saying about, the business model as a whole, and I'm going to answer your question. But essentially, leads quality-wise, I would honestly say it's pretty similar in a sense. So for us, it was nothing new getting adjusted to. But when we made this transition, the biggest thing I asked my team was, I had I kept it very under wraps. I wasn't trying to say too much. It was like a whole suspenseful sort of ordeal. But right. When I made a presentation, I presented to all of them, and I asked them, with myself and my leaders, we presented to them, and I asked them, the first question I said was, is the issues we're going through right now, are they a resource issue or is it a work issue? Because I'll tell you this right now, you see the practice company, they'll tell you, oh, get on the phones, make 300 calls a day. Yeah. And this is whether anyone does it or whether they don't do it, that's the motto, right? So I ran the case study, right? And we genuinely ran it because no one else was really doing it. And we were doing this all virtually too. So my team was on the call for 12 hours a day. I tell you, I swear, 12 hours a day, no breaks. And when we were all gas, no breaks, 12 hours, like really ruthless. For the new guys, you guys think it's bad now. Imagine how it was back then. But essentially, they're making 300 calls for 200 leads a month. 200 leads a month. Right. Essentially, fast forward to now. I mean, now the resources are there. It's just a matter of making them, making most of them, and it's a volume game here. I mean, Harold Durant. I mean, he's I couldn't ask for a better leader. He basically told me the exact same thing, explained the whole thing to our team. It's a volume game, and we've been able to get provided with those resources to be able to output that kind of volume. But essentially, in regards to quality, I hope that kind of answers the question. I mean, it's pretty much the same for now, at least, because we're only calling like the lower end leads, but it's leads that no one else wants to call, but we're still doing what we want with that. And it's kind of like a eye-opening experience for us as well, because we're doing what we're doing now, and whether justify it's good or bad, it's too early to say. But I will say that if we're doing what we're doing right now with these kind of leads, I can only imagine what we're going to do, God willing, when we have better kind of leads and things like that, when we have the opportunity to do so. So
yeah. So what type of leads are you running?
We're running age mortgage protection.
Perfect, right? And so it's something that you said that's real key. Like, not everybody wants to run those because back when we first started it, there was nobody running. Now everybody runs it, and there's a little bit more competition. And I think a lot of us personally have gotten a little bit lazy because we got used to not picking up the phone and dialing, where your team is picking, and you guys are crushing it, right? And all you did was apply the same work ethic that you developed at the practice company and applied it here, where some of us might have kind of got excited about the CRM and then let the CRM kind of do all the work, texting and never calling. And then you guys basically implemented the same system, but applied it here with those same leads, and you guys are killing it. And I think it's important to talk about, right? Like the CRM and things like that should be an added bonus, right? It's something that kind of helps, but it's not something that you should just rely completely on, right? Nothing beats talking to somebody on the phone on the first pickup, or the second, and booking it from the phone, right? They hear you, you're building rapport much faster. They know it's less likely, you get less likely, is this a scam type of stuff, where a lot of times text messages people might think is a scam, right? So I think it's a better way to reach out to our clients, and our clients are asking for us, right? So we have to get through that gap, that process, right? To make sure that they are able to talk to us. We're able to offer different options for them. So with that kind of being said, right, what do you think the big 3 pros are from here that are separate from the practice company? What's the 3 best things that you've got here that you're glad I'm here now?
That's an easy one to answer, to be honest. I would say the biggest thing is the culture. It's everything that we ever asked for. You see, things, and that's the first one. So I say culture is completely aligned with our values. But I'll also say that I kind of contradict myself in the sense to say that culture is sort of subjective to the individual, right? What works for, someone here might not work for someone over there. What works for someone over there might not work for someone over here, right? But the culture, it wasn't aligning with our values, our morals, our vision to scale over there, to the point where we even moved our team out of the office in February to go 100% virtual. So then it was just us building our culture outside of the office. So I'll say that's the biggest thing. The biggest shift, not just for myself, but I feel like my team can attest to this as well, is that as the day that we got in here, we have been, showing nothing but respect and help. And every time someone needs help on a sit, when I need help, when my team needs help, someone's always there for us. Someone's always there.
Yeah.
And then it's not making an environment where it's like, oh, go to your manager, figure that out. Yeah, no, that was not, we never have to deal with anything like that. People have done nothing but good for us here. So I say that's the first thing, biggest difference. Second biggest difference I'd say is that, people here have something to lose, I'd say. And that plays a very big factor in, drive for new agents. And what I mean by that is that, where we were at, the median, and I'm not trying to bring age or anything into this, but it plays a factor. And I'm going to get to that here shortly. I mean, where we were at, the median age range was like 18 to 22. Right. And but that's the reason there's a stigma around, our industry, because of the fact that they have, people who are young coming to the industry, and, they touch a little bit of, they generate a little bit of revenue for their business. And then they go in and try and go on tomorrow, the social media
nightclub.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The social media guru of the world. And then, and they're trying to recruiting people, and it's like eye candy for people, and that just gives, and then they don't take care of the people because they don't have an understanding of business,
Right.
And I always tell my people, it's like sales is not business. And business is not sales. It's one piece of the puzzle, right? And then recruiting is also is part of it, but it's more so hiring. But yeah, let's say the next thing is obviously, like I said, just the the age and everything like that. Just being around the people who have something to lose is very important, because I mean, here people who have like families, people who have children. I mean, I'm sure no one would be here if food wasn't being put on the table for their families, right? Yeah. It's a big motivator. They say that, and part of my friendship, I asked my old owner of my agency that I used to work for, I used to say, why don't you ever hire people who are a little bit more experienced? Why don't you ever hire people who are a little older? And his first thing was like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I took that to heart. I was like, well, that's a bit of a interesting response. I won't use the word, but I was like, well, let me think about that one. So after time, I come to a revelation in the past couple of weeks. It's like, okay, well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but the thing about the old dog, you take this with a grain of salt. I'm not calling anybody old here. Right.
You call me old, bro. That's his first question, man.
I swear. It's just, I knew those.
I just messing with you, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. What I'm saying is that essentially with an old dog, the old dog has been through the gutter. The old dog has seen the things that a puppy has not seen yet. You see? Yeah. And that's what molds the dog into somebody that is able to, face adversity and things like that. So it's easier for them to be coached, right? Mm-hmm. Now, with the puppy though, with the puppy, yes, the puppy can be driven if you tame the puppy, but they all each come with their own pros and cons. You see?
Yeah,
so
for sure.
The puppy, like you bring someone who's younger into the business, it's a little bit more work. It's a lot more work for sure. I mean, my God, someone put their camera on, put their mic on, and if you don't nip these things in the bud when they initially get in, they start to build bad habits, and they think they can get away with it forever. Yeah. But the only difference is that with the younger generation, especially in like my generation, I'm only 23, so who am I to speak? But the big thing is that you see these young cats, going back to what I was saying earlier, is that they get this money and they get the ego factor. So now they think they're on top of the world. They don't want to listen to anybody, things like that.
Right.
But they coming around people who are obviously a little bit more experienced. There's no room for ego there. So that's a very big factor. So I say that's the second thing, right? So and then last thing I would say is that opportunity as a whole, opportunity on both ends, right? Opportunity to build the business, scale your own business, and actually build and scale and own your own data, not just be some sort of IZ of some sort. No, you are genuinely building, operating, scaling your own business with your own systems, your own processes, and you have the opportunity to even exit if you ever want to at some point, right? That's a real business, right? Yeah. Where we were at before, we could never do that. You're basically tied down to one thing.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and that's the biggest thing here. And then also for the agents too, there's a lot more opportunity for the new agents here, right? Because the resources that are provided for them, everybody is happy. And when I spoke with Harold, that was the biggest concern for us, is that we ran the case study for 90 days to see, okay, maybe we're crazy, maybe these guys aren't putting in the work, maybe it's a work issue rather than a resource issue. But we ran the case study, we ran the data. Everything we do is database. It's not emotional whatsoever. So we did the data, 12 hours, 300 calls, not working. we talked to Harold, he basically explained the same thing to us. Like, you know, my biggest thing is my people first. Like, I don't, people say that all the time. It's a very cliche thing to say. I respectfully, like, if the money will come later. I don't really care about all that right now. You put your people first, and you'll be rewarded for right now in line, but it's all the better if you can take care of the people. Like, the real flex for me is not necessarily, you know, oh, I made this happen, or I did this. It's like, oh, I helped this person make 6 figures. I helped this person, you know, coach them, generate, like, get 20 people on their team who really believe in their vision. You see? So that's what I'll say, just to sum it up. So those are the 3 things. Sorry, that was long.
No, man, that was good. I think you hit a lot of important points there. Main one I got is I'm the old D's the puppy. You know, that's what I got for most of it. But no, man, I'm just kidding. Kind of to touch back on, you know, when you were talking about, you know, the older versus younger, right? It kind of depends on the business model too, right? If your business model is to bring in younger people because you can mold them how you want, or, you know, someone who's, like you said, been through the trenches, they see BS right away, right? They're like, nah, I've been through this a few times. I know that's BS, right? And then where, like you talked about your progression, you were at this place, you figured out quickly, hey, this isn't, you know, through data driven, you were smart to do that this isn't going to be a business model that works for me and my people. We have a better opportunity over here to do it. And I think that's really smart. I mean, I think that puts you in a category of a type of person that not many of us, you know, will ever be, because it's just your mindset is different. And I think that's important, man. I think you're the type of individual that can carry a team and that can grow. And I think as long as you keep that mindset going, even when you hit the higher heights, bro, the sky's the limit for you. You know what I mean? Just being honest with you. But let's kind of like switch gears a little bit. Let's say some of the people here with us wanted to recruit from other organizations. Let's kind of talk about what some of the things that Harold said to you or talked to you about that, you know, put the bug in you and you're like, okay, yeah, I see the opportunity. Because a lot of times people are drink so much Kool-Aid at where they're at, they don't even see the opportunity. So what's sort of some of the things that you guys talked about that, you know, would help these people to recruit and show them the opportunity?
Yeah, I think, you know, the biggest thing with us is that, like I said, it goes back to what I was saying originally, which is, you know, higher quality over quantity. It's a very taboo topic. A lot of these things that we do, you know, we have a lot of standards. We make sure people show up on time. It's very taboo in this industry because everyone wants to wave the paper and say, I'm 1099, I can do what I want. I don't, even if you're paying for the leads, even if you're paying for your leads, I would make it very clear. And a lot of people are not going to like that. And that's okay. We just have to be okay with that. If they don't like it, it's okay, but be very upfront and honest. You see, the biggest problem with this industry, another big one, is that people, they sell the dream and they throw all this, you know, amazing stuff at people, but then they bring them into business and then they tell them the standards after. So with us, it's like we have a few bit of processes before we select someone who we feel as though would be eligible to be able to be a good fit for our business.
All right, let's talk about those standards. What would they be?
Oh, so it's honestly, it's bare minimum. It's just show up. We have 8:30 training, 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. We do training. We also look at people's schedules too. So like when they do the interview with me, make sure at least they have 4 full days. If they don't have 4 full days, it won't work. It's not even financially responsible. It's not financially feasible for us to make that happen. Nor is it financially. I'm just considering like time it takes to train, time it takes to like in the swing of things. It just statistically based off the short amount of time I've had in this industry, that's that. Showing up on time, schedule, you know, making sure that they're tracking their dials. Like we track all of our metrics. All our KPIs are tracked. So, you know, just to make sure that everyone is aware, because sometimes people can get lost in the mix of these things. Like, oh, I didn't close a sale. Oh, I didn't close. Okay, so what I do is I check their dials, I check their appointments, I check like, you know, how many presentations they got on, and we do a call every Saturday morning to go over these things per person to see where the gaps are. What is the improvement? Like, what do you need to do? Okay, so you set appointments. These people didn't show up. Okay, this should be your goal. Your next goal is to get people to show up for appointments. Okay, so you got someone to show up for the appointment. Okay, next goal should be get to numbers. Small wins every day. So that's another one. You know, tracking our KPIs, making the dials. And then we also have a dress code too. You know, we have to make sure that everyone's on point. So we run this like a proper organization. And, you know, some people, when they come into our business, it's kind of crazy. But the reason we do it this way is because we're not just trying to create regular agents, right? People who have already made it this far to come into our business, as tough as it already is, you know, they already show those kind of qualities. So now the next step for them is turn them into leaders. You see, and with leadership, it's a different kind of accountability that needs to be held. So we're already preparing them for leadership to come in. And, you know, with those standards in place, you know, it's a net like you have to have that. Leaders, like it's the most, people love it because you get paid a little bit more, but they don't know what comes with that. They don't know about the sleepless
don't know that you're responsible for every single person on your team. They don't know that not only do you have to put food on your table, but you have to make sure that your people are eating. Sometimes you're not going to eat so that your people can eat. You know what I mean? So in a nutshell, those are some of the small standards that I would say that we have in place. It's very straight cut, straightforward. But we hold people accountable from the jump, essentially from the interview process. We do an overview every Wednesday to see who's interested in it. So when people are posting on social media, and they have a friend who knows a friend, bring them into the overview, just do like a quick slideshow with them. After that's over with, and then Sundays I run the one-on-one interviews with everybody. So right now I'm trying to teach some of my leaders to run the interviews, to pick up on what they need to assess when it comes to interviewing. But right now everyone that comes to the business, just like Harold does it.
Let's say I'm interviewing for the job, right? Let's walk through the process.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
hey, I'm here for the job.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm very nonchalant about it. I say, okay. So first up for you, we host company overviews every Wednesday, 12 or 8 p.m. What time works best for you, man?
The latter time.
Okay. Pardon?
Yeah. You said between 12 and 8 or 12 or 8?
12, 4, and 8 p.m. So
I'll take the 4.
4 p.m. Okay, sounds good. I'll go ahead and lock you in for 4 p.m. And then we'll be sending you a Zoom link on that day. So just make sure your schedule.
Yeah. Okay. Is it just going to be between me and you, or is it like a committee?
Yeah, so it's most people who are interested in the position. So like I said, Paul, this is an overview. This is not an interview. This is just an opportunity.
Perfect.
To give you an insight on the business. If it's of interest to you, we can discuss potentially having an interview for you after. No promises, but we'll see what we can do in that regard. But if you're truly interested in the business, this is the tell-all for it. So I'm way more than happy to have you.
Perfect. So then you put them in the overview with some of the things that you go over in the overview.
We basically just go over what we are, what we specialize in. So the difference between, let's say there's someone coming from a captive agency, we tell them hey, this is the difference between a captive agency and a brokerage, right? And then someone who's a new agent, we basically just explain to them what is insurance? How does life insurance work? What is their first 90 days going to look like? What are the associated costs with this, right? Another big one too. People don't tell you about the cost. Like when I was in my practice company, they didn't tell me about any type of cost until I got onboarded.
After you got onboarded, yeah.
It was crazy. I was like,
that's recruiting right there. Yeah. And not at its best either, I might add. So let's kind of put this more in perspective, because a lot of people are going to see this, right? So let's kind of give like a mini overview, right? What's the difference between captive and brokerage, and why is there advantages with the brokerage?
So it's, like I said, subjective, but if I were to explain it to you, I would say, well, and let's say like this, Paul. I mean, what are your goals, right? Are your goals to build your own business? Or are you, more of someone who is, driven to have people provide their resources to you, and you're at the will of the mercy of, whatever they give to you, and you're basically a glorified employee? I mean, which one makes more sense?
I got into insurance to own a business. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, excellent. Yeah, so that's essentially what a brokerage is, right? So a brokerage essentially is an opportunity for you to be able to, not only just have, one carrier to work with, but you have numerous amounts of carriers to work with, not only for, yourself to be able to, have like numerous products to be able to look through, but more so for your clients to be taken care of to the best of, your ability, right? Because that's the number one thing here, right? These people are not our customers, they're our clients. Right, so we're in their best interest. We're not here shooting for the biggest AP or whatever. We're here to make sure that these things are affordable. We're here to make sure that we're consulting, because this is the only business in the world, Paul, where, not the only business in the world, but this is a business at the end of the day, right? If let's say, Paul, you own a digital marketing software company, right? Let's say you have a client on retainer for $500 a month, and that client decides, you know what, Paul, I found I no longer can afford this. I have to cancel. Who loses money in that situation, Paul?
Me.
Exactly. That's exactly what this is. So that's why it's in our best interest to make sure that these clients are taken care of, right? So that's essentially the way that I would explain that in a nutshell.
So basically letting them know that in not so many words, hey, we work with a lot of carriers, so we're able to offer the best price to the client, where you're stuck in a captive. And a lot of times, most captives, they're not the cheapest, when you're comparing apples to apples. That's why they throw a lot of the different things in there with it, they'll call it different things, burial expense, when it's really just whole life, right? Or, accident, and then you're doing accident where it's any accident, and then it's a car accident, and then it's a, if you're in a plane, train, or automobile, like where you pay a fee for accident, and then you get so much more coverage, but really it's just plain accident, right? And so they're not really competing on price versus, product. When it's apples to apples, most carriers are going to beat a lot of those captive agents. And that's essentially bad for the agent too, because like you said, once they catch wind or they talk to somebody that's in a brokerage like us, they're going to end up canceling that policy because they're going to realize I'm paying a lot of money for not as much coverage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's essentially what.
Yeah. So I think it makes sense, man. I think you really hit a lot of big points there. And I think those are really key things that when you are looking to bring somebody from captive agencies, things that you can capitalize on to showing them that this is a better opportunity. And like you said, do you want to be a glorified employee or do you really want your own business? And I think that definitely separates people, right? Because some might want to just, be a glorified employee, right?
So
Yeah, that whatever fits your model, that might be the better business model for you. But here, I think is big difference. And I think it's why we capture guys like you with, a much higher intellect and a much higher drive to go get it. You know what I mean? So, man, appreciate you again jumping on. I'm going to kind of finish up with a couple more questions here. One thing you talked a lot about was culture, right? I think that was a real big hit for you. Let's kind of talk about, processes a little bit deeper, right? So when you're thinking about the different processes from captive to brokerage, do you see a lot of differences or do you see mostly similarities?
I'd say processes are pretty much the same. I would honestly say the processes are the same, but again, they're subjective based on the leader. Right? I always say this
Right.
business and most businesses in general, right? There's two things that you can't put a dollar amount on, right? It's culture and leadership. Those two things shape the business in any regard. There's no way you can't just pay someone to create that, right? It's very tough.
Yeah.
I'd say in regards to processes, it's very much so, the same. Like, I think well, honestly, I'll say this. It depends, right? I mean, where I was coming from before here, I'd say, like, are you talking about in terms of onboarding? You're talking about like generalization? You're talking about color?
Just the whole business in a sense.
Yeah.
Basically,
Oh, yeah.
what I'm alluding to is I think you're right. There's a lot of similarities, right? So, because a lot of people are afraid to make that jump because they think there's this huge difference, right?
Yeah.
The only difference I've seen, and I've been doing this a while, is opportunity, right?
Yeah.
It's like you said, either I'm dialing 300 dials a day, for 200 leads a month, or I have, unlimited amount of leads depending on what I want. It's under me and my choice, right? I could either go out and purchase leads or I could be on lead assistance with us, right? And you're still going to get more leads. It's a volume play, right? But the processes are very similar. So it's not as scary of a jump, I think, as a lot of people would think. Would you agree?
I would agree, but I say this too. We still make 300 calls a day. Those things never change.
But that's what I'm saying. You're keeping the same processes, right?
Yes.
Just the only big difference for me that I found was opportunity. There's more opportunity here.
And also, if you're already a captive agent, you already have your license. My God, when I tell you, I was thinking the same thing too. I was like, this is gonna be some sort of big,
Big
move. This is gonna be a big thing. It was so seamless. It was all done. It was all done virtually. It was a thing.
Yeah.
It was a big thing for us to learn. It was done in such a way, a very strategic way too. In the sense where, like, we had the leaders learn first, and then our team learned after. And Harold took the time out of his day to literally train. Like, nowhere you go nowhere, and a leader, the owner of the agency, or even a leader, will take the time out of their day to train the entire agent. This man, he has kids, he's married, he has another 200 people to worry about, and he took the time out of his day to help us out and train us. And I mean, and obviously we have a long way to go, very much so. We're humble beginnings for sure, but it's amazing to say that in 2 weeks ago, our agents got on the phones, and 2 weeks later, I mean, our numbers are there, So, and I owe that all to my team, of course, and Harold above all. But the onboarding process was seamless, for sure, seamless. And we've continuously onboarded agents from, practice agencies, and they're already cracking business in 2 weeks. Because the first week they're just doing knowledge. I mean, 2 weeks, because we actually had a few guys, shout out Brian Romero, Jacob Singh, came from the practice agency, already had their license, took a week to get released, got released, already had their carriers by the time they got released, and cracked business the week after. So in 2 weeks, they made money from coming from practice agency. Right.
It's crazy, right? Like if you got a seamless process, it can happen for you pretty quick.
Yeah, right? Very much so. So I'll say that's easier. That's much better here, I'd say, for sure.
All right. Now here's one of my favorite questions, right? You being newer, right? What's some things that the rest of us that have been here a long time that maybe you can enlighten us that, hey, I see that this could actually maybe help you guys, because everybody brings value, right? So a lot of times we think because we've been here a long time that we don't need to learn anymore, or we don't need to adjust, but that's actually false, right? If you don't keep self-evaluating and adjusting, and new blood always brings in, oh shoot, you know what? I didn't make my 300 dials, right? I don't even do that no more. I wonder what I could make if I did that, right? What's something else that you've seen that you would be like, you know what? I think if we did this, that a lot more people would eat.
Oh man, that's a bit of a. I mean, this is the most humble way possible. I mean, I'm new here, so like, I'm not trying to tell anybody how to leave, like do anything, but just based off what I've seen, like I said, we built this, and we're continuing to build this off of the mistakes of other people, right? Like,
It's a smart way to do it instead of making a mistake yourself. Yeah.
Every day is like almost opposite day for us, but essentially, I would say the biggest thing that I saw when coming here is that people are using the CRM, right?
Right.
We talked about this a little initially. But let's just take it like from a business sort of standpoint, like logical standpoint, right?
Right.
I can't speak for everyone's schedules here. I can't speak for what people have going on outside of this. And but at the end of the day, Grant Cardone said this, right? Grant Cardone says, and this is very cliche or whatever, but he says, someone got my money. I just got to go out there and get it. Someone got my money though. Somebody has my money. I just got to go out there and get it though.
Right.
So for us to sit here and wait, for a assistant, or also known as a CRM, to sort of wait to schedule you an appointment, you're basically just saying that you're waiting for someone to be able to come out to you and say that, hey, I want a policy. That's not what we're in this industry for. That's not what sales and marketing is about. That would just be that's called BDR. That's called BDR. That's like customer service. I always tell my guys, I hate to use the word sale, but in this situation, I'll say it. The sale doesn't start until someone says no. That's when it starts. Until then, you're just taking orders. Right. So what I will say is that if you look at any business, right? Let's look at let's say you have a digital marketing company, right? And you're doing outreach, right? You're sending out email campaigns, text campaigns, right? And some of the most notorious companies out there, they have their own, like look at a car dealership, right? Car dealership, not only are they having people come into the floor, not only are people calling in, but then they also have their own sort of outreach as well. That's why they have every car dealership, any notorious car dealership in America, they have a BDR department, literally a whole call center where people are just dialing all day, and they're tracking their dial. But what does that do for the business? That's the point I'm trying to make. What does that do for the business? The food, if you guys are ever wondering where the food is missing on the table, right? Where is the food missing? It's in the phones. It's in the dials. I swear, because if you're sitting there waiting to be the will and mercy of the CRM, the assistant, then it's not gonna necessarily work. But there's massive amounts.
And the systems, whatever it is, assistant, CRM, they're not going to ever want it as much as you want it, right?
Exactly.
Right. So the true drive is always within ourselves, right? And I think that's part of life, right? The number one challenge in life is really mastering and conquering yourself first, right? And a lot of that is discipline, right? And so having discipline to do stuff that you don't necessarily like, but it's going to be better for you in the long term, that's how you really win. The money and everything else isn't the true win. The true win is dying knowing that you mastered yourself, right? Because none of the stuff you could take with you at the end of the day, right? All the Egyptians tried to bury themselves with money. It didn't go nowhere. It was still there till somebody robbed them, right? So at the end of the day, right? And in my humble opinion, I think, and I'm gonna use your word humble, I think at the end of the day, the true testament of life is that you die knowing that you did everything you could, right, to live life to its fullest. And that included mastering yourself, seeing things, building relationships, right? So I think you hit all the right buttons on this call, man. And I can't, that's why I love new blood coming in, because I think it inspires some of us old dogs that you were talking about earlier, to get right back on and stay disciplined. You know what I mean? So let's end it with this, right? What's one thing that you love about this business, and what's something that you see coming in the future that could change the business forever?
One thing that I love about this business is the opportunity for scale, right? Opportunity for new agents to come, for all walks of life. New agents, past agents, leaders, everybody is welcome here, and there's an opportunity and there's a cheat code for each of them to be successful in their own way. If I just talk about that, we'll be here forever. But there's a cheat code to this business. There is a cheat code. I swear there's a cheat code. If I have to write a book about it, I'll do it. I promise you, it is. There's good people, and this is an amazing business.
Yeah.
Statistically, business, not emotionally, not social media wise. This is statistically an amazing business. But there are good people and there are bad people in every business. At the end of the day, that's how we want to be. Now, to answer your second question about what am I excited for in the future, that was the second question, correct? You guys, was it?
What do you see coming in the future, right? Like a good leader always looks to the future, and they could see adjustments that they might have to make in order to stay, important in the business. So what's some things that you see coming down the pipeline? I know you've only been in the business a short time, and I wouldn't normally ask this just anybody, but you have a very high intellect, and I feel like you're already thinking ahead. So what's something that you see coming that could change the business forever?
Yeah, that's an easy one, man. The first thing I thought when I first started building the deal was that, I always tell my guys, the leaders on my team, I say, they drop a lot of business and they think that, I love them for this, but, I tell them, okay, now you've done that for yourself, but what about your people? Because now that's my next big thing, is that I want to see one of my leaders be able to build out their own C-suite the way that I was able to do it with them. That's going to be the estimate to see, like, okay, is our scale, for now, or is it forever? Because once I have, my 4 downlines, when I have each of them build their own C-level, then it's game over from there, because then now all I have to do is just make sure that everyone is building it from the top down, right? But that's what I'm really looking forward to see, like, which one of my leaders is going to be the first to, like, really build it out properly with the same standards, principles, and testimonies that, we've had in place. I'm waiting for that for sure, because that's going to be able to see that, okay, how do I know if you're a good leader? I'm not going to look at you. I'm going to look at your people. How your people feel about
100%.
you. How are they being taken care of? How are they performing, right? How are your people leading other people, right? It should be an ongoing effect. That's the first thing I'm extremely excited about, to see who's going to do that. And the next thing is obviously, diversification of products. So I know we're talking about getting into health, annuities, things like that, IULs. For us, that is like, I don't really know much about it. And I'm very, very excited to see what that's going to do for our entire agency as a whole. Not just, my team specifically, but everybody. That's going to be next level for us for sure. So,
well, you're doing it the right way. You're mastering, just like we did when we first came in. We mastered mortgage protection, right? Or final expense, and then we kind of progressed, because knowing the basics and the foundations of those is going to really help you when you get to that next level. So, and man, I still use mortgage protection leads for IULs, right? I mean, it's a game changer, right? So, yeah, man, I think you're well on your way, man. And again, appreciate you so much for, coming in and hanging out with us, man. Man, it's been a really good interview, brother. Like you hit some major nuggets